Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of On the Mark here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today, and today we're talking with three heroes of the pandemic. They're teachers, people that are trying to work through the combination of teaching in class, teaching remotely, and motivating their students, motivating themselves, and working with a slew of distractions. So I hope, if nothing else out of this program, that those of you listening have a better appreciation for the teachers that are working with your children, grandchildren, your neighbors, your nieces and nephews, and all of that. And without much ado, our first guest today is Janine Fondon, who is a professor of communications at Bay Path University. And Janine was recently announced as a winner of this year's Pynchon Awards. Janine and I first met several years ago when we were both asked to do a panel with not-for-profit organizations that were learning about how to better communicate with their audiences. And oddly enough, we were working to do a similar panel this last April, which got canceled because of the pandemic. But Janine and I and a colleague of ours had coffee one morning at Panera Bread the day that everything shut down. So I want to welcome Janine, who was my last live in-person coffee date before the pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you. So great to be here. And yes, I'm so glad we did have that coffee.
Yeah, I am too. How did your teaching change once the pandemic started?
Well, I think everyone really had to kind of change on a dime, literally within the announcement, classes were put online. I must commend the students for their resiliency and a lot of the other faculty members and so forth, where you look ahead, do what you have to do, put things in place the best way you can, and walk forward with the understanding that everybody's doing the best that they can. And that's what happened. The campus really had to, pull together the pieces. And I feel that the students, above all, kind of understood where we were and where we are now, because, this fall was also, living in a very different environment. And they just pursued and persisted and tried to really make the best of the elements we were given.
Well, you and I both work in the world of communications, and Zoom and Google Hangouts and some of these other platforms that we've learned to utilize are just another form of communications. Do you think that overall, things like Zoom are enhancing our ability to communicate, or are we missing something when we utilize Zoom?
Well, I believe that Zoom has been the connector, and a lot of the other services like Zoom and, chats and everything else, they really become the connector for us. And I think it's been really, really helpful. It has also brought us into a new world where more electronic communication is needed. I commend my students for, navigating and creating a newsroom that, delivered online, digital publications that have engaged, hundreds of readers. So, on that much I can say Zoom and the Zoom newsroom, it can be very helpful and effective. On the other hand, there is a lot of value to human communication. And even though, we're all doing this Zooming, there is that element that we are humans and we do seek that human connection. So I never want to leave that off the table.
I was going to say, you teach a lot, or you instruct a lot of students in the art, throwing it out there, of diversity, of reaching out to people who are different than themselves and communicating and finding the common ground that makes communications possible. And I remember when you and I were on this panel together, and we both had clients that were representing diverse members of the community, and we were able to find the common ground in not only what we presented, but teach them that. Is that something that can be handled through Zoom, or do you think that one-on-one in-person communications is better?
Well, I think if we're looking at our laws of communication, I believe the one-on-one, face-to-face is the ultimate, best option. But yet, Zoom, in that respect, if you can navigate conversations and have dialogue and begin to bring people together, the good thing is that Zoom allows us to bring more people together in a time and a format that we can have those conversations. So I think there's benefit to both. And when we do return, and really they're two different types of communication, but both of them can be very useful.
Do you think that the pandemic and the political climate in this country and the rise of racism, which was here long before the last couple of years, do you think that people are changing their way of communicating through this? Are they learning new and better techniques of reaching each other?
Well, I think it's very interesting that, of course, we have new and existing ways that we have, kind of communicated with each other. I think what most people are focusing on now are the messages we're delivering and how we're delivering those messages. And there's just a new range and appreciation for, the range and styles that we have. There's a lot of activist communication, and yet there is a lot of change that has to be communicated. There's transition, and we're probably in one of the unique times in our history, and I'm sure we have been here before, that there are many things changing at once, and many conversations that all intersect. So it's a complex situation, but it's one we all have to have. And if we're looking forward to 2021, a lot of people are, kind of wondering, is 2021 going to be like 2020? Well, if we're still sorting out, then there will be a lot more communications. And also, we might have gotten the conversation started in 2020, but we haven't finished the conversation. So I would think that in 2021, there will be still a lot to learn and a lot to say and a lot to resolve.
I will totally agree with you on that. So many people think that come January, everything's going to be fine. But we've got a long way to go. The vaccine won't arrive here for quite a while. And a lot of the divisiveness that came to the surface in 2020, although it's true that time heals things, there's a way to go before the healing process starts.
Yes, and if we could all think about the depth of what we're going through and what we're seeing and hearing and in our media. And I saw a report yesterday, and to me it just touched me so deeply. It's like the healthcare workers who are saying, "Oh my God, we had to put so many bodies in a freezer," and oh my goodness, the depth of what's happening to us right now. And from the shooting of George Floyd to not the shooting, but actually the shooting of many black men across our country, to the tragedy of George Floyd, to all of the deaths due to COVID. This is very, very deep. We can only imagine, what we go through when our own loved ones pass away. My mother-in-law passed away last December, and I still feel it. So now layer on everything else, and we have to understand the depth of what every human being is going on, with them right now.
Yeah, you and I have both worked in the media most of our careers, and we were trained to do this. And the media, it's been determined that there's fake media, the media's at fault, and the media's been put to blame many times when they're trying to just tell the truth. How do you teach your students, with everything that's going on in the pandemic, the ethics, the integrity, and what needs to happen to be effective as a communicator.
Yes, and I love, and this is a base plate in all of my courses. I weave this in. It's the fact that we have to teach media literacy. This is so much a part of who we are that you can't just look and listen and hear and think you have it all. You have to really evaluate the depth of who's delivering the message. Where is the message coming from? Is the message complete? What are the voices? What's some of the motivations? And so again, really breaking down what we're seeing. This is why I believe we see a lot of people very interested in history right now, because they're trying to dissect what is happening, what has happened, and does all of this fit? I really feel this interest in history and being able to understand trends, patterns, what happened before, foreseeably what could happen now. And people are very curious because they're seeing a lot of things and they have to have that media literacy lens on.
I agree. And one of the things that I'm trying to teach when I do work with public relations is a lot of the people that are out there as publicists, and I will say that two recent presidential press secretaries are great examples of this. They're knowingly not telling the truth. They're knowingly disparaging the press. And yet they're going to become role models for these other people coming up the ranks that are going to go, well, if I get into public relations and I handle something, that behavior's acceptable. When in reality, I think it's more hindering than helpful to find somebody that will do something like that. How do we teach this generation of up-and-coming communicators the importance of ethics?
Well, first of all, in our journalism practice, we have to introduce them to the true practice, this is what it's based on, and understanding that there are a range, and we have this wonderful continuum in our society about who defines who is a journalist, a PR person, a communicator, if you will, and we have to understand that it is a continuum, and people have to, who's an author, who's not, who's telling the truth. There's this kind of back and forth, but we have to understand what separates one from the other.
I agree. What got you into communications? I mean, you're considered by so many of our mutual colleagues as being one of the best communicators around. What drew you to the idea of communications and media?
It's kind of interesting because as I kind of came up, early in my career, I studied sociology and anthropology, so a far ways away, not too far ways away from communication. But as I came back to New York in the industry, that's when the communication was one of those fields that if you knew anything or you loved people, messaging, stories, writing, and research, it was the place. And someone suggested to me that, I see your resume, I see what you've got, but I think you better make your way to CBS. And I did. I, got into the intern program there. And so again, fortunately someone pointed me in that direction, but I really loved it because, that's what got me into sociology and anthropology was the research, being able to really well-research stories and themes and presentations and then the medium with the growth and the development of TV, film, stage, I really found a home there.
Yeah, and you've been able to not only practice it in your work, but teach it. So you've kind of got the best of both worlds.
Yes, I am enjoying, the ability to, teach students and understand that the next generation, we must educate the next generation. And that is, our hope and our future. And one, education is foremost, but two, listening to that next generation and just think about where we were earlier in our careers and saying, I am so thankful to those role models and people who educated me on a number of fronts. And we need to keep that, regardless if we're Zooming or not. We need to make sure that we are imparting knowledge and truth.
Yeah. Just to step aside for a second, you're going to get the Pynchon Award this year, which is such a distinguished honor. Did you know you were nominated, or was it a total surprise to you?
Right, it was a total surprise, and when they revealed the nominator, I was so excited that it was a woman, Katie Tacone from Open Pixel Studios, and it's a testimony to meeting someone. Here we are, at a meeting and trying to do something good about communicating, and both of us working so well, and we just continue to journey. And she ended up, supporting me on the Voices of Resilience exhibit that I have at the Springfield Museums, and I've also been her champion in many cases. So, two people meeting each other where we are, helping each other, as women, and that's I was so excited that that's the story that's supposed to be, that we meet people where they are, we bring the best of what we have and who we are, and do something good, and we both can move forward. So I was just, thrilled that again, it happened that way.
Yeah. Now the exhibition that you curated and developed for the museum, it's Voices of Resilience, correct?
Yes.
Is it still there?
Yes, it is still there, and it will be there, I believe, through mid-January. They are hosting, they do the socially distanced monitoring there, so people can feel free to go and enjoy the exhibit. They also have not only the Voices of Resilience, but they also have a new portraiture exhibit that is absolutely phenomenal and really is a great testimony to how people see themselves and see others. So I think the whole museum at the MFA is really giving us a lot to see and think about, from the 70-plus stories that we cover in the Untold Stories of Women's History to the portraiture. So it's very powerful. I invite people to go and see it.
And that's at the Springfield Museum of Fine Arts at downtown at what's often called the Quadrangle. The exhibit got just incredible. I don't want to call it reviews, but a lot of great publicity for not only you, but also the museums. People have talked about it and all that. I'm so glad it's still around. And I guess even with social distancing and all that, it's still available.
Yes, it's still available because the museum is adhering to all of the policies for social distancing. So you just go to the welcoming center, and they will actually sign you in a very socially distanced way, and they will only allow so many people in the galleries at a time, and there is security and everything else that helps monitor that it's flowing the way it's supposed to. But it's very comfortable, and I think everybody is just so respectful of, we're all trying to keep people safe. It's a nice place to go with knowing that everyone is trying to keep you safe.
Janine Fondon from Bay Path University, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure to chat.
And thank you for all of your good work and all of the work that you've done in our profession. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janine. We're going to take a break and acknowledge our underwriters. We'll be back and talking with more of our heroes from the pandemic that are in the classrooms. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We are broadcasting on 89.5 FM WSKB, Westfield Community Programming Channel 15. If you've missed a part of this program today and want to catch it or previous programs, they're on YouTube on WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating, Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Listen to me, Michael Buster McMahon, Mondays 8 to 10 a.m. to learn the stories behind your favorite songs. Or don't. I'm not the boss of you.
Community Radio
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 at 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to On the Mark. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and we're devoting today's program to teachers who are our heroes and heroines working with young people during the course of the pandemic. Our next guest is a math teacher at Longmeadow High School, Pauline Jacek, who had the go from teaching in class to teaching remotely and now into a hybrid situation of teaching both remotely and live, and in the course of it all being a parent who had a kid who was going to school at home remotely. So I guess it's been a real challenge, Pauline, to get through this pandemic and teach.
Yes, it has. Very challenging. I haven't put in this much time, I think, since my first year of teaching. I'm just very thankful that my kids are older and they're grown and they fend for themselves, because I spend most of my time working on preparing for school.
I know that it happened overnight because one of your colleagues is one of my best friends and would just talk about how to convert things. What platforms did you use to switch from being in class to going online?
Let's see. I used Google Classroom as like the go-to for organization of my materials. And then I purchased my own document camera online and had to learn about that technology, because when I was doing my videos originally back in the spring, I was trying to use my computer to do it, and that wasn't working. So then I recruited my son, who happened to be at home because he was a senior in high school at the time, and he had an iPhone, and so he would have to sit and listen to my calculus video lessons because he would be taping me, because I brought home a whiteboard and some markers, and I would do my teaching from home with a stand that my oldest son, Ben, made for me a long time ago. And I had my little whiteboard propped up. I'd go through my teaching, and Colby would just videotape me. And at the end, I would have him, because he's better at the technology, airdrop it to my Mac. And then I would put it on YouTube. And after putting it on YouTube, set up a link in the Google Classroom to publish the videos.
My God. When you went to teaching remotely, I mean, math is a curriculum that requires a student to pay a lot of attention. Was it difficult for you to maintain their interest and their attention levels remotely, or did some lose interest? And how did you keep them motivated to what you were trying to get done every day?
I tried to have a sense of humor even in my videos. It's not quite the same as, the sense of humor that you would have in your classroom, because my video just displays my arm and my hand writing on a whiteboard, but they could hear my voice and, hear like funny remarks that I was trying to make to get them to remember to do certain things. But
it was a struggle, and I know I probably put a bunch of kids to sleep, and they probably used me as a sleep aid more than a learning aid, I would say. And was everybody doing what they were supposed to? No. I mean, there were kids that were, I'm sure, just copying other kids' work, because I'm sure they were just sending them pictures and then they would submit it. But I did get a very nice email in the fall from one of my students that I had last year, who thanked me for continuing to teach even through the spring, even if it wasn't at the rate that we were going at normally. But I did still continue to teach, and he's finding that it's very helpful for him now that he's in college, that he has, a good enough background to handle himself.
With this mix of teaching hybrid in class, does that create more challenges than either all in class or all hybrid, or does it ease some of the issues that come up?
It depends on each teacher. I think in the building is dealing with this in their own way, and I'm dealing with it in my way. And my way is my eyes have been hurting me, so I had to do something that would help me out so my pressure just doesn't go through the roof. And what I decided to do is, when the kids are in school as a cohort, then we work on things together and we do it on paper so that they don't have to look at a computer screen, because I think the younger generation is spending too much time screen watching. And I think that, I know I had high pressure in my eyes, and it got pushed to the next level in the spring after all this technology, where I had to go on drops. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if I'm doing damage, what is it doing to this next generation of kids and their eyes as they, go through time? I'm sure it's not good. So when I see them in person, I work with them, and when they're all at home, then they will watch pre-recorded videos that I make and do some either website applications or a Google form that I might create that kind of ties into it. So they're doing something to kind of justify that they've watched my video and they've learned something. And then we also have a cohort C, and they're always remote, and they just have to do the work at home, like on a given day. If I'm working with their cohort C and cohort B and they're working on the same thing, well, cohort B, I'm doing it in person and on paper, and cohort C is just, still in front of the screen. But they can print those papers at home and still work on it at home, but they still have to look at the screen. And I think that there's going to be big ramifications for all of that.
I agree. Have the parents of these kids been supportive? I was talking with another teacher who said that this teacher had students where the parents were also working at home. They also needed access to computers, and there was constant squabbles between whether the father got the kitchen table or the mother got the kitchen table to work, or the kid got the kitchen table, and oftentimes the kid came in last place. Did you find that most of all your parents were standing by their kids?
I've only had communication with parents of my freshmen. I teach mostly seniors, and by the senior year, the parent is mostly, they're around, but they're not like right there, because these are seniors in high school, and they know how to take care of their own issues. But in answering your question as far as workspace and sharing workspace, when I do the Zoom sessions and they are all on the screen, I would say the majority of my kids are working from their bedrooms and not the kitchen table.
Yeah.
So is that conducive to learning? No, I don't think so. And then we have, the dogs and the cats are, around as well. And I notice it's very distracting, especially to my freshmen, more so than the seniors. I have a couple freshmen who have animals, and, and then they're like, oh, I have to go let the dog out. Like, well, if you were in school, you wouldn't have to let the dog out.
That's true. How was it for you teaching from home, because you had one kid in school and a household full of pets?
Yes, mine was okay. I have older pets; they're not younger, And when I was online, my husband was great, and he would, take the dog outside for a little while and then bring him back in. So we kind of made it work in our household so that I would take the dining room and my son would take the kitchen, and we were in good shape because there was only two of us that had to share space. So one got the dining room, one got the kitchen.
And then this fall now, you sent one off to school, so you pretty much have the place to yourself.
Yeah, I actually took the kitchen because you get better Wi-Fi in the kitchen.
Yeah, and better snacks and stuff like that.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
We got parents and grandparents that listen to this program a lot that have either high school age kids or ones that may be in college. What would you advise them on how to make this whole situation better for their kids?
Be supportive of your kids. It's kind of stressful because I'm sure that they would much rather be in school. I think what has come out of this is that there might be a newfound appreciation on the behalf of kids to actually come to school. So I would say parents, just try to work with your children and share space. And just realize that everybody's under a lot of stress and we all lose it, but try to talk it through and manage things and help each other out.
Well, Pauline Jacek, I want to thank you for joining us today. Pauline Jacek is a math teacher at Longmeadow High School. I've got to say that we know each other because her son does a lot of work for my company. And I'm hoping that if he's listening to this, he's studying for his finals. But thanks for joining us. We're going to take another break to acknowledge the underwriters that make programming like this possible on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. I'm Mark Auerbach. And if you've missed a part of this program, you can find it on WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
It's Tuesday morning from 6 till 8. Wow, it's Tuesday with Bob Plass.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back, everyone, to On the Mark here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and today's program is devoted to the heroes and heroines that are teachers during pandemic and tough times. My next guest is somebody I got to know about 5 years ago, working with a program at the Kernhatton School in Vermont. Her name is Lisa Bianconi. She runs the music department at Kernhatton, which has students from 1st through 8th grade. And Lisa is one of the first set of Grammy Award nominees for Outstanding Educator. The very first year they launched that particular award, she made the finals for that. The Kernhatton musicians were stars of public televisions together in song series for quite a while. And Kernhatton singers and instrumentalists performed at the Big E, Lincoln Center, a Red Sox game, sports events all over New England, churches, concert series, and all of that. And through music, Lisa was able to transform the lives of many students from the 1st through the 8th grade and put Kernhatton Homes School on the map nationally in terms of its music. So I always love chatting with Lisa, and it's good to see you, Lisa.
It's great to be here, Mark. Thanks for the invitation.
So how difficult has it been teaching music? I understand we had a phone call, chat, like a lunch Zoom a few weeks ago, and you said that, first of all, you have to social distance your kids in the classroom. And second of all, singing has additional risk factors than speaking or being on stage. So how have you transformed the music program during the pandemic?
Well, it certainly has been a challenge, but I think we've done it very well here and very positively. So in Vermont, we were told on March 17th last spring, statewide, that our schools were closed for the pandemic. And between March and the end of our school year, we sprung into instant remote learning with all supports in place for the kids. So during that time, there was a lot of Zoom conversations and a lot of different music activities online. But remember, that was a very quick decision, and there was not much preparation to have this happen. But our entire school gathered and did really, really well, and then we did remote graduations. So we had all summer to face this pandemic and get ready for in-person instruction during this fall. And this is where there has been, positive changes, but seriously, some challenges. We've done bucket drumming. We've sung outside with masks on and socially distanced 6 feet apart in warmer weather. We've had piano lessons, theory, music history, music listening. But we're used to performing on band and wind instruments, and we're used to singing, and we are very comfortable with performing several times a year, and certainly this has all changed for the safety and the state mandates.
Now, Kern Hatton always put a strong emphasis on music, and you instructed the kids and got them to perform whether they had any talent or not. As I recall, I was very lucky because one year you guys came down to do this together in song, and I got to watch a rehearsal. And they were all enthusiastic, every last one of them. Some of them really could sing, and some of them really couldn't. But they were all treated equally, and as an ensemble, you must have built in them an extraordinary level of self-confidence.
I think music and the arts bring self-confidence to every child, and that's especially important to keep them involved to that level during this whole COVID-19. So we've tried to instill the same self-esteem throughout our entire music program and our entire Kern Hatton program to still, even during this difficult time and challenging, to instill the best out of each child. And I think we've done a really great job here with all my colleagues have been extremely supportive of the program. It's very different, but it still has, all of the core values that Kern Hatton promotes. So I think we've done a great job.
Yeah, the music program is integrated into academics and other things. But there have been some graduates over the years that really made their mark in professional music. I can't remember their names, but one of the gentlemen who had been big in Hollywood in jazz came back to the school at one point. But in the recent years, have any of these kids shown extraordinary talent in music where you've recommended that or pushed them into considering it in a conservatory level or professionally?
That's a great question. I think the focus of the program right now is to promote an understanding and able to have all of our students that graduate not only be able to participate in a high school and possibly a collegiate program, but really to take music throughout the rest of their life, whether it's singing in a church choir, community band. So there's been so many different types of standouts, maybe not internationally famous like Dick Nash was on the trombone, but I feel these achievements are great, just being a huge contributor to your community.
How did you get involved teaching? What made you decide to be a music teacher?
Well, I've always loved working with children, and especially children that might have some challenges. And our program here invites those type of children to our community. And if you spend a few minutes with a child, and especially doing a musical type of activity, whether it's playing the piano, playing the trumpet, singing, you see pretty quick success and radiant smiles on children. And so I guess it's just always a love of mine, teaching and teaching children and music. So you combine those elements and you have the perfect job.
Now, I've seen you conduct and I've seen you accompany them on the piano. When you got into studying music, were you going to study as an instrumentalist or a vocalist or a teacher? What drew you to decide to pursue this?
So I played piano. I've had lessons since I was 5 and did many recitals. And then when middle school and high school arrived, I wanted to be part of the band. So in the jazz band, I always played the piano. Choir, I already sang. And then in the band, I picked up the clarinet because I wanted to be with the rest of my friends. In college, I learned strings, percussion, brass, and woodwinds. And when the job at Kern-Hatton opened up, because I was also a piano major and music ed major, I did have a minor in chemistry in case I could not find a job in music education, so I had all the bases covered. Kern-Hatton offered the opportunity to do everything I wanted to do. With piano, I could accompany the choirs and conduct. With instruments, I can teach all the band instruments, certainly to a middle school proficiency. There wasn't a string program here, so that worked out well because my finesse on violin is very limited. But Kern-Hatton offered all the opportunities for everything that I truly loved.
And how did you get nominated? How did the Grammy Award thing come about? Because when you were a finalist, it was the first time that the Grammys had ever acknowledged music educators. But who nominated you, and how did that happen?
At that time, we had a wonderful director of our school, Connie Sanderson, and she was involved in many of my performances and wanted to have some recognition for my work here at Kern-Hatton. And I think she tried to find an award that would go with that, and it just happened to be the Grammy Award. And she initially submitted my name, and I will never forget this. I checked my computer for email one afternoon, and there was an email from the Grammy Foundation. Your name has been submitted as a candidate, and I was absolutely in shock. And then I contacted Connie, and she said, yes, I did that. And then the rest is history. There was so many thousands of applicants, and then it just kept getting whittled down and down and down until the top 10. And it was just a wonderful experience, and it brought a lot of attention to our school and our program, and I'm very thankful for that entire experience.
Yeah, I was going to say it brought a lot of attention to you, but also to the school. There were national TV news up there, and the work that you were doing was really all of a sudden seen by lots of people. But your students have really done so many different kinds of things. I mean, I've seen them march at the Big E. I know that there was a faculty member at Kern-Hatton who was being treated for cancer, and the kids went and sang at his bedside, or in an
correct.
atrium.
Yes,
an
that was
atrium.
Tom Bonner.
Yeah, and then they came down to perform at the Big E one year, and they sang at the D'Amour Cancer Center at Bay State Health, and yet they'd be doing community church concerts, and they'd be doing the Red Sox at Fenway and all of that. They seem to be pretty flexible about the stages and the circumstances of performing, and it never went to any of their heads. They were just as kind and as nice and as fun after doing all these things as they were when the first time I saw them at Kern-Hatton.
You're so kind. I think the greatest gift we can give any child is the understanding of the importance of giving back. And the program that we have here at Kern-Hatton has been able to greatly enhance that ability. So you are correct. We have had very fortunate situations. We have sung twice the national anthem at Fenway Park. We have been on a Star Spangled Banner tour, traveled through the Northeast and down to Washington, D.C. and back, and along the route sang at many, not only patriotic venues, but many other places, such as elderly care or hospitals or some place where someone would like to have a gift of song. And I think when our students leave Kern-Hatton, honestly, that's one of the most important pieces that I hope they take with them, is the gift that they've been given here to not only sing or play their instruments or perform, but to give back to others.
I remember they covering as a reporter when they came to Springfield to do the finals of Together in Song, which was hosted by Kevin Rhodes. It was on WGBY public television, and I had arranged Bay State Health to feed all of them in advance because the travel time, and there wasn't very much rehearsal and all of that. And I remember asking one of the kids what was the best part about going on tour, and he said the French fries. He said because the French fries at Kern-Hatton weren't that great, but he was willing to go sing anywhere because you either stop them with all of them at Friendly's or McDonald's or whatever, and he looked forward to singing for French fries. And I thought, wow. He's sung at Fenway. He's a finalist on a public broadcasting television special, and he's totally focused on singing and fries. And I thought, what a great combination.
You know, it all boils down to their children, and they love food. And honestly, if it takes French fries to make them happy, I will provide as many French fries as they need.
Yeah. You, in addition to teaching kids, you have kids of your own. Have your children learned music and studied music and gotten into it in any way, or have they pursued other paths?
So my children have all had the experience of playing instruments in their school program, as well as helping out the Kern-Hatton community and playing in our programs, which I feel very fortunate. They've been raised along with all of our children here. But all of my children have pursued other paths, but they continue to take music as part of their lives. So I have very diversified children. One's a physician, one's a lawyer, one's a marketing digital strategist, and the other one is a math specialist, as well as I have a younger child, and she's still in a program right now at Vermont Academy singing and playing her ukulele. So I just want to give the gift of music to create happiness in everyone's life and support the arts in every way possible, but to keep it going throughout your life, because many children stop music once they leave a school program. And I feel my goal as a music educator is to help them pursue it throughout their lives.
Yeah, even if they're just listening to it or going to a concert or something like
Correct.
that.
Or supporting it. I think we just need so many art supporters in this world.
We do, and especially in these times when so many arts organizations and not-for-profits are struggling so much. It's the orchestras that are probably having the most difficulty, and the music ensembles. Theaters can easily stream plays if they have the budget and the inclination, but an orchestra of like the Springfield Symphony in Massachusetts, there's no way they can do a stream concert because of the restrictions in place for masking
Absolutely.
and everything else. So they're financially hurting. I'm sure the music ensembles in Vermont are as well.
Yeah, it's a real devastation with this pandemic going on. I mean, at my level, we've had handful of practices outdoors, spacing singers 6 feet apart with a mask on is a challenge. So I can't even imagine trying an orchestra or anything at a professional caliber.
So, if you're going to advise a parent or grandparent of a child that's in a music program somewhere, and that obviously if they have talent and you want them to be pushed on, but what about the one that just loves to play piano or loves to bang the drums that has limited talent? How do you keep motivating that child to stay with it?
Well, my line is everybody has talent in something, and it's finding the right talent to match the person. So the luxury, obviously, of having a band room full of instruments here at Kernhattan, because we own all of our instruments. We've been very, very fortunate with donors throughout the ages that if something's not working, we'll find something that does work to have great success. And I feel every child should have a basis in piano, because that would just be a really great foundation. If you have a child that's struggling, I think the bigger thing is finding out why are they struggling. Is it because they don't want to sit down to practice, or is it just it's not a good fit? And I think just reach out to the teacher and ask for some suggestions on how to support.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think you and I are of the generation where our parents were giving us lessons. I don't know if it still exists the same way, but as a kid, I got piano lessons and I got a chance to try theater and try other things. My parents were really saying that this is part of our world. I'm not sure that today it's the same, but having learned that stuff at an early age, if nothing else, I have an appreciation and a love of it as an adult.
Right, and unfortunately in today's world, private lessons are a luxury. So the goal is to have people support the school music programs so that these children can be introduced to the arts there, and hopefully at some point, if they're very fortunate, they can be noticed and given some scholarship to pursue more of the arts.
Lisa Bianconi from Kernhattan Homes. We've run out of time, but I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.
Yeah, I hope we get a chance to chat again, and when the pandemic ends, maybe go have a great lunch or something like that.
That would be perfect.
Okay.
Thanks again, Mark.
You've been listening to On the Mark on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're broadcasting from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. We'll be here again next Wednesday. Thanks for joining us.
Teacher's pet. I wanna be teacher's pet. I wanna be huddled and cuddled as close to you as I can get.
That's the lesson we're guessing you're best in.
Teacher's pride. I wanna be teacher's pride. I wanna be dated and rated, the one most likely at your side.
You got a burning yearning to learn.
I wanna learn all your lips can teach me. One kiss will do at the stars. I'm sure with a little homework, I'll graduate to your heart. Teacher's pet. I wanna be a teacher's pet. I wanna take home a diploma and show Ma that you love me too.
That you love me too.
So I can be a teacher's pet long after school is through.
Oh, teacher's pet. You wanna be teacher's pet. You wanna be huddled and cuddled as close to him as you can get.
I wanna learn all your lips can teach me. One kiss will do at the stars. I'm sure